Hello, friends. Don't you love it when somebody who doesn't actually know you calls you a friend? Politicians do it a lot. It's election week.
Usually.
Yeah.
True.
So Thursday morning, which is tomorrow, we're actually at Tulane at Breakfast Club going to talk about the horror of politics. It's going to be great. And then I think there's going to be like some kind of Halloween shindig at Loyola for dinner club instead. So that'll be more fun, maybe, or maybe not. But anyways, this is the Common Table Recap and Reflect podcast with Kaliah, Jason, and Matt. And last week, Jason led us in Christian talk about freedom. But some of the things we talked about, we asked people like what freedom is. People said it's total detachment or having no restrictions. Someone said it's the ability to live in the present, which is a pretty cool concept for freedom. Someone who I think was coming of age, trying to be an adult, said freedom from authority vetoing your decisions, which makes sense. And then we talked about freedom and law, and these guys will share some stuff. But one student was like, the only way to have absolute freedom without law to protect it is if we all lived in our own little bubble. In my imagination, I literally saw like little domed bubbles that every human lived in by themselves, which I don't think I think she was meaning more figuratively, like just our own space where we be hermits and are not invaded upon by others. But maybe we could have more hope for humans to actually get along with one another and still have freedom.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just kidding. I do. Well, it was really interesting for me because on Thursday night, always a great time on Thursday nights. But one concept that Jason actually did a very good job of like walking the group through was the story in, I think, is it 1 Samuel or 2 Samuel?
Judges.
No, this is in Judges.
This is in Judges. Not even close.
No, very close.
it's they're neighbors.
Pretty close,
But in the book of Judges, it's the story of the Levite who just chooses to take justice in his own hands when his concubine is killed.
How was she killed?
How is she killed? By a gang of men.
Yeah,
It's a really we don't have time to dive into it, but just how he goes about that situation of just thinking what was right in his own eyes. And Jason said a very good point in the verse in the Bible was, and in this time there was no king, and everyone did what was right in his own eyes. And us understanding that a king brings some type of kingdom, which in a kingdom there has to be laws, there has to be some sense of authority. And when you have a law, it allows you to be protected in a way, simply from the fact that everybody is free to do whatever they want to do. And in the book of Judges, if there is no king, as it says, and people do what is right in their own eyes, then that truly means that your freedoms are not protected. Your freedom to the right of life, or your freedom to say, no, I don't want to be thrown to this gang of men, as the woman unfortunately was in that story, then there's no point of freedom in that point. And so God says, no, the law is there not only for you to stop sinning, but just simply to protect you and to protect those around you, maybe even from yourself, in your own selfish acts, and even in like your own evil acts as well. So that was something I pointed out.
Yeah. Laws against like certain substances might protect you from yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Other laws too, I'm sure. Seatbelts, bad driving.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Speed limit in a child zone.
Boo. No, just kidding.
The guy with 4 kids.
Right. Yeah. So ultimately, the topic of freedom comes to this idea of like freedom is freedom to do whatever we want, basically. But what we want out of freedom, can we get that out of freedom if we all are doing whatever we want? And the truth is, no, we really can't, because what we want out of freedom typically is safety, prosperity, joy, just an atmosphere, I don't know, in which you could be whatever you want to be and do whatever you want to do, to the sense of like, where you are flourishing. And we can't have that really without laws. And we do see that, like with Matt brought up the speed limit law, like someone might want to go like 100 miles down a neighborhood street, but that person also doesn't want to run over a child if that child steps into the street. So there's a law that stops that person from speeding in order to protect the child. And even if that person is grumbling against that law, like, man, why can't I go super fast? Ultimately, if they were to think about it, it's actually, they would have to admit it's a good law. because they don't want to kill someone. We see this actually, like when it comes to a good king, for instance, or a good ruler. The good ruler's intentions are to provide a place where people can have safety, prosperity, and joy within their kingdom. Not all kings are good, obviously, but this is the heart of God, I think. We see this in the prodigal son story. So in the prodigal son story, there's a father. He has two sons. His youngest son starts to not want to live under his dad's household, not under his dad's household rules. And so he asks for his inheritance to go out and do whatever he wants. So he goes out, he ends up squandering all his money, partying and having a good time, but he ultimately ends up working in a pig slop, destitute and starving, and basically on the verge of probably dying. He's essentially in hell, you know. But it's in this slop that the Bible says he comes to his senses, and he realizes, man, when I was under my dad's household, I actually had a place to sleep. I had food to eat. I had all my basic needs met. So he says, I'm going to go back to my father, and I'm going to ask him if I can be at least a servant in his household. And I think that's kind of the viewpoint of the laws. We see these things as chains. I'm going to go and be enslaved to my father because at least I get what I want. But here's the thing that's crazy about God and about the story of the prodigal son is that he goes to his father, but his father doesn't make him a slave or a servant. His father actually reestablishes him as the son. So he puts a robe on him, gives him a ring on his finger, makes a feast for him. He basically has all the rights a son would have in his household. And that's exactly what the gospel message is. We are adopted into the family of God to be sons and daughters to God. So under the law, you could say, the law of God, we are free for freedom's sake, but we are free to love.
Yeah.
And the reason why we are free to, when you think about love is a place of basically dying to ourselves or putting ourselves low in order to care for other people. And most of us won't do that if we feel like we're in a place that's not safe, where we're not prospering, or where we're not full of joy, right? But in the Father's house, we are granted all of this so that we can love and be the people who we were created to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just tack on, the prophet Jeremiah talks about the new covenant, and it's brought up that Jesus brings the new covenant. And in the new covenant, there is no more external law. The law is written on the hearts of individuals.
Right.
And in that place, then everyone does exactly what they want to do.
Yeah.
But what happens is we're actually shaped to be like the Son of God, who gives himself away in love for others.
Yeah.
So love becomes who we are, and then there is no law. And that's what the New Testament says, against these things there is no law. To actually be, and that's what we're made to be for. That is what we are made for.
Yeah.
Is to be loving people. But we need restrictions at this time because selfishness still lives in all of us at some way and in certain extents. And so we need freedom. We need salvation from selfishness to become people of love. And then we don't need to be told what to do anymore.
Absolutely.
Because we know what to do, which is to love our neighbor as ourselves.
Right.
So rock on. Happy almost Halloween and voting stuff and all that jazz.
You got this.